we've got a development about the baseball game we're really excited about. We have the opportunity for somebody to throw out the first pitch. So there's still tickets if you don't have tickets to the game. And I think what we'll do during lunch is have people throw their names in the hat if they want to try and throw out that first pitch, and we'll draw at the end of the luncheon. So again, we've got tickets left. So please, and even if this is your reception, this is what you paid for in your registration. So please join us if you can, just for dinner if you're not interested in staying for the whole game. We've got transportation there and back, and we also have parking passes left. So I'm really excited about this opportunity, and I hope you guys are too. And I think it's going to be there's going to be great weather, and it's going to be a great opportunity to have some fun at the conference. So we'll get this panel started. We chose a range of our founding members and past presidents to give people an idea of how NCLGBA got started and what it's been like over the years. The first speaker will be Jack Vogt, UNC MPA faculty member, UNC Chapel Hill Institute / School of Government professor. He taught MPA students, local government managers, and elected officials through the municipal and county administrative course. He teaches local government, finance, and budget professionals as well. Is a founding member of NCLGBA. Is also was a member of the Local Government Commission from 2010 to 2013. He designed and directed the North Carolina Local Government Performance Measurement Project, which we now know of as the Benchmarking Project. The next speaker is Ellen Liston, also a founding member and the first president of NCLGBA. Began her career as a budget officer in Durham, became the assistant county manager of Orange County, moved to Coral Springs, Florida as the deputy city manager, and during her tenure, they were the 2007 recipient of the Malcolm Baldrige National Quality Award, which is the nation's highest presidential honor for organizational excellence. Our next speaker is Pam Meyer. Began at the City of Charlotte Community Development Department, went to the state of North Carolina, doing statewide CDBG program, moved to Texas at the City of Dallas. She was a CDBG grant analyst, and then as a budget analyst, moved to Massachusetts, the City of Quincy, as planning and community development, as assistant planner in the CDBG program. Came back to North Carolina to Wake County, was a budget officer, then as county budget office, then moved to the county budget office as an analyst, ended up as Durham County Director of Budget and Management Services. The next speaker is Randy Harrington. Began his public service career as a Presidential Management Fellow in the U.S. Department of Transportation in Washington, D.C. Went to Concord, North Carolina for 6 years, the last 3 as Budget and Performance Manager. Is currently serving as the City of Charlotte's Budget and Evaluation Director. And the last speaker is Bertha Johnson, who began her public service career as the Director of Finance in the City of Roxborough. Joined the City of Durham in 2005 as a Senior Budget Director overseeing the capital improvement plan there. In 2006 was promoted to the Assistant Budget Director, and in 2008 became Director of Budget and Management Services. So that's our panel.
Katie, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. And what Katie failed to mention is that I joined what was then the Institute of Government in about 1713. I'm retired now, and so when she called me up at the nursing home, I said, yeah, great. So I think we were playing bingo at the time or something like that. And so I was around at the founding and helped out with that process, working with Ellen and others as well. And so I just want to say a few brief remarks about that. And trying to remember this stuff, was kind of the biggest challenge. So let me see, is that up there? No, I went the wrong way. Okay. Well, I think I can just do it. I've got it in my head, more or less. Yeah, I'm sorry. What? Okay.
Here you go.
All right. Yeah, go to that first slide. I'll do this. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Kind of the group that got it going. In the years, you know, we have an anniversary date. We have one date in mind, but I think the startup process occurred over a multi-year period, 87 to 89. Who was it? It was the budget directors and staff from the large and medium-sized units of North Carolina mainly. It also had representatives of the Association of County Commissioners and the League of Municipalities, and then the School of Government. There were one or two other people from the Institute of Government involved beside myself, I think, in those early years, okay? And it was a series of meetings, or at least a handful of meetings over a period of time where we came together, okay? And who were some of those people? And, you know, many of those people will not be known to many of you. But I wanted to get down the names, but some of them are known to you. Ellen Listman played a key role in those early organizational meetings. A lady named Eve Cantrell, and she was with Durham County, actually, rather than Orange County, okay? Others as well. Ann Jones from Winston-Salem played a key role. Mal Watlington from the city of Wilmington. And so forth. Rather than going over those names, a gentleman named Buck Squires from Mecklenburg County in those early years as well. The medium-sized units, Bob Wurst from Asheville, Kai Nelson from Kinston, and so forth. Okay, so those were some of them. I didn't mention all of the people on that list, but those were some of the folks involved and some of the units of government involved, both city and county as well, larger size and medium size cities and counties in North Carolina. Okay, then going, what were some of the issues, at least as I could remember them, that sort of thing. I think a key one to address at conferences or meetings like this, the issues that were specific to budgeting, and especially budgeting in North Carolina. Okay, I came in this morning, you were talking about revenues from the State Division of Motor Vehicles, transportation revenue, you know, covering some of that. There are some peculiarities with regard to North Carolina budget law, covering some of that, as well as what is going on around the country. What was the disciplinary basis or the professional basis of the people that were founding this organization? A strong one, perhaps the predominant one, I would say, was public administration. A lot of these people were coming out of MPA programs, Masters of Public Administration programs, and were serving in budget capacities, so that PA background. But also business and finance. Some people with strong business and finance backgrounds coming out. Pam, you're a graduate of Duke, are you not? I think so. You know, perhaps coming out of business and finance backgrounds, a strong analytic. It also, a desire to focus on the future, not necessarily the long-term future, but the upcoming budget year. But then going beyond that, multi-year planning, financial forecasting, multi-year capital budgeting. I think there perhaps was a little bit of sense that, you know, we could go to the City and County Management Conference, and many of you are members of that as well, but maybe, you know, we need a little bit more than what we're getting in that conference. Or we go to the City and County Finance Officers Conference, and, you know, they're talking about other issues that we're concerned with, but we don't get involved in as much, such as financial reporting and auditing. So I think there was a focus on that future and so forth. There was an analytic background, I think, that all of you have, that the founding members brought to the table, bringing it in, not only from a financial perspective, but from a research and a statistical basis. And I think there was a feeling among some of the founders, well, maybe we weren't getting enough of that in some of these other professional meetings we were going to. And also, I think the foundation mirrored what was going on at the time nationally. And I refer to the National GFOA, Government Finance Officers, and the ICMA. And in the ICMA, some of the folks rising to the top came from a budget background. And that was also happening with the GFOA. And indeed, one of the key members, founders, Pat Pate, went on to become president of the National GFOA along the way. And I think they were beginning to give more attention nationally to budgeting, capital budgeting, planning, research and statistics and so forth. So some of my thoughts about some of the founding folks and some of the founding issues. And Ellen, let me turn it over to you.
Well, I think it's interesting how Jack describes it, and how he describes that he was around at the beginning. This is not true. He was the beginning. 26 years ago, this organization was just an idea in Jack's head. And here's how I remember my involvement in it. I called Jack one day just to talk about problems, because I was a new budget director. I was like 30 years old, completely in over my head, and I called Jack, asking some question about something else, and he says breezily, as Jack can do, you know, a lot of people think it would be a great idea to have a budget association in North Carolina. And I'm kind of absent-mindedly saying, yeah, sounds pretty good. He says, great, then let's get started. And then we did. And he said, okay, first we're going to do a survey. He said, no, I have all the contacts, this will be easy, nothing to it. Did the survey, and we were amazed. We got so much response so quickly from people saying, yes, there absolutely is this need. Let's move forward. And then we did these planning meetings, as you were talking about, and Jack was right there kind of pushing us forward. Yes, we can do this, and yes, it's time for our first annual meeting. And I'm thinking this can't possibly happen, and we did have a first annual meeting. I think we had it in Chapel Hill, and it was really well attended. And we had evaluations, as you do now, after the meeting, and folks were saying, yes, this is what we are looking for. We really want to continue this. So after that first meeting, and everybody's feeling really good, Jack calls me up again. And remember, Jack, I was a new budget director. I had lots to do. And he says, okay, now we need the Constitution and bylaws. Really? And he hands me the Constitution and bylaws from the North Carolina Finance Officers Association. Nothing to it. This will be fine. And so it went, and you know, putting together the next conference, and Jack comes up with a group of people that that would be willing to serve on the program committee. And who are they? Probably all the people he just mentioned. But it was something very early that we saw could be sustained. That there was enough interest that this could actually, it wouldn't just be a one-time thing. I really love budget people because you're doers. We're fixers. And one of the things that I learned from an organization, I can't even remember the name of the organization anymore, but they were widely known for management practices. And one of their mantras was, see it, own it, solve it. They called it SOS. Talked about it all the time with all their employees. See it, own it, solve it. Budget people are like that. And Jack was like that. He saw a need, and he owned it. And look where you are today. And I have to say, my congratulations go out to all of you. Who knew 25 years later you guys would be breaking attendance records? It's one thing to start something, but to keep it going and make it sustainable, that's really something special. So my congratulations to you all.
Well, good morning. It is still morning, I think. As I was driving over here this morning, I was reflecting back on when was the first association meeting that I went to, and having run into Kim Kittner, who was then the president, which I think was 92, 93. It's great to see some folks from days gone by, and wonderful to see a lot of new folks in the association. my first memories, so the road was all set and things were underway when I first joined the association. One of the things I do remember is that it had a longer name, which I can't quite remember, because at some point right before I think Laura Gill became president, we had a contest, as it were, to rename the association and to get a logo, which I believe Laura Gill was responsible. Many of you may know her. She's, I believe, a manager in Northern California still as we speak. But that's sort of really, I think, coalesced those of us who were involved in the association at that time with having more ownership on what our focus was. And I'm not sure if we had a mission. I know there were bylaws, but that was a lot of the conversation that was going on in the early to mid-90s when I first became very involved in the association. For me, having moved around in the public sector when I came back to North Carolina, I was really searching for a group of like-minded folks for networking purposes. The Institute at the time, I'm glad we're still remembering it was called the Institute, was very, very helpful to local government folks, as it still is, where you could just call up at some point, before the days of email, and really make a contact and get information. And as has been said, Jack was hugely involved in that endeavor. And I remember when Bill Rivenbark came on, I think we were up in the mountains at a summer conference at his first meeting, and others, Maureen Berner, David Ammons, and a slew of others from the school of government have been just very helpful to us all locally. I think at the point I became president, I had, as I think is still the case, one sort of moves through at-large membership. If you take on doing a conference, I decided that that was not something I ever wanted to do for a living, having planned a conference in Pinehurst, even being a golfer, and it was great fun. Worrying about meeting setups, room setups, and all was a little bit more than I thought I would want to handle on a full-time basis. But moving forward, when I think I took on the presidency, which was 99-2000, I don't know that there were issues. We were becoming bigger. We wanted to become a bigger organization. Found, I think, that a lot of smaller, both counties and municipalities, had interest in belonging. And so then the challenge, I think, with planning conferences was to have enough variety in terms of what the topics were and how you could get people interested in coming on board. And we had managers from small towns and counties who were also interested, because often they were very responsible for developing their budgets as well. So over the years, I think I've seen, and I think Randy and Bertha, who are more recent, involved in the leadership, we'll see how that sort of has changed. The wonderful thing is I retired at the end of February, so, but as I was retiring and thinking about it, it has been so much easier over the years. Like Kenneth Hunter and the website and all the information that can be shared and passed is just a wonderful thing. And who knows in another 25 years where the organization will be. But I think, I guess I was asked to think about challenges. I don't know that we had challenges per se, but I think we became sort of more focused in terms of the association and continuing to get feedback from members. And so I encourage all of you who may be newer to the organization to not just attend conferences, but get involved in the leadership of the association, and I think it will continue to thrive.
Thanks, Pam. I'm going to start, before I talk a little bit about maybe some of the ways that the association has helped me in my career and some of the milestones that I think we've been able to achieve as an association. I want to express a disappointment in terms of how the association has evolved. And that is, I think to this day, we still only have 2 drink tickets on the association. How is it 1 now? Oh my gosh, that's even worse. My disappointment is, but no, it's that was always one of the things that, gosh, I think we should be getting about 5 or 6 or 10 by now. Anyhow, regardless, I think we're still in a great association. So. But just a couple areas that I'll highlight. One, I would say is, in terms of me personally, how the association has impacted me. And that really comes to, I think, serving on the board and the program committee. And I can't stress enough or encourage you enough to consider participating. And I don't know if Lou Bonapane, is Lou Bonapane in the room? I know he's there's Lou. I think it was back in 2002 or 3, and Lou asked me, I think it was Lou, you know, do you want to, would you be on the board and would you be involved? And I said yes, and it was one of the greatest rides I've had in my career. And so I thank Lou and the others who, you know, who reached out. And so for many of you, as you know, as leaders in the association reach out to you to be involved, I hope you'll say yes. And I hope that you don't have to be reached out to, that maybe just volunteer on your own, because it's a great experience, extremely rewarding. It's a great excuse to get out of the office and go to Chapel Hill or someplace fun for a day and have a meeting. But the thing about it, though, I think for me is, and many of us, you know, in analyst type positions starting in our careers, is that being on the program committee or the board really provided a great opportunity to develop new leadership skills. And that for me was where I tried to hone and perfect and learn, make mistakes. And I think that helped me grow as a person. So I think it's a great learning opportunity, or leadership learning opportunity, for those of you who you know, want to continue on your careers in different ways, in different pathways, and if leadership is something that's interesting to you, I would highly recommend that. The other thing, I think, you know, Bertha will probably touch on this a little bit more, but many of us in the room, you know, we come here, it's great to see the faces and smile and shake hands and give hugs and share our, you know, our struggles and our achievements. And that, you know, many of you across the room are not just colleagues, but that you're all, you know, really good friends of mine. And that means a lot to me, and I hope that for you all as well, that, you know, as you develop these relationships and the networking, that that's a really special connection and something that you'll have hopefully over your career. I'll say there are two components that I'd say in the mid-2000s that we focused on, at least when I was on the board, and that I like to highlight. And one, it was the conference attendance. And I know myself and Evans really followed that up when he was president. But the element of really trying to get a high level of attendance here at these conferences. And so we were really trying to push, you know, for 150, et cetera, and even, you know, beyond that. And we were able to achieve that. Now, granted, the Great Recession, you know, put a little dent in that going forward, but we, you know, we've come back. But that element of having a really strong conference program, a lot of marketing and promotion, and, you know, seeing a big full room here today is really exciting for me, and I think that speaks volumes of the current leadership and the programming and the quality that's been put together. So I think that's a great thing. And I also credit Charles Smyer. I don't know where's Charles. There he is. I think maybe we still are, but I know Charles, on the membership side, I think we were up to 300 at one particular point, but maybe we're over that now. But that was a big milestone for us, and I credit Charles and a lot of the work on that and the rest of the group. So anyhow, the last one that I'll point out that I think is important for our association is our first speaker here, who's standing behind me, but Jack Vogt. One of the things that I couldn't have been more proud of to be a part of back in the mid-2000s was to help start the Jack Vogt Award. And one was to recognize Jack and the contributions he made, and really, and as I think as Ellen put it, not as just being around at the start, but being at the start. And so we're really giving Jack a lot of that credit, and because we're very grateful for him. But the spirit of that recognition is to recognize people like Jack and those of us who followed in terms of blazing new pathways and charting new courses in budgeting and evaluation and performance management across the state. And it's a great way, I think, for us to recognize our own. And you know, it's not an award that happens every year, but it happens once in a while for those folks who really helped chart those new paths. I think it's a great way, one, to honor Jack and your legacy and what you've meant to the association, and all those folks around in this room who really helped make this state a great place to be for budgeting and performance management. So I think with that, why don't I pause, and I'll ask Bertha Johnson to come on up and share her thoughts.
So thank you, Randy. Randy is a really, really, really smart guy. Most of you know that, right? I was over there when he talked about the drink tickets, and I couldn't figure out why he hasn't figured it out. So Randy, not for you, but for the other folks in the room, here's what you do. During lunch, you look at persons around the table, and you talk about drink tickets, and you ask them, are you going to the reception tonight? And I said, oh, I have 2 drink tickets. I really like wine. And they'll say, I don't drink. And I'll say, do you mind giving me your tickets? And then, you know, I just kind of migrate over to another table and have that conversation. And then by the end of the day, I have about 10 tickets. Yes, that's right. And Matt Brinkley would always, and some of my other staff members, I think they did it because they wanted to brown nose me. They said, would you like my drink tickets for tonight? Or they wanted to get me drunk to find out what kind of information they could get out of me. But either way, there's a strategy for those of you who don't know. As was mentioned earlier during my introduction, I started my career in 1993 with the city of Roxborough as a finance director. And one of my biggest challenges there was I didn't come from local government, I didn't know anything about local government, but the biggest issue was I didn't really have any connections. I was not involved in any organizations. So I decided that I was going to go to the GFOA conference. I went to the first conference and I looked around the room. Because the field, my background is in accounting, there were primarily white men in the room. And they basically ignored me. And I even remember seeing the folks from Durham, and I really wanted to work for the city of Durham in the room, and I tried to ease my way into the conversation. And the men were standing around drinking their drinks, and they basically ignored me. So I went back to the city of Roxborough, and I was really bored, but I didn't have any connections to advance my career in local government. So I actually left local government for 8 years. And that was the biggest mistake I made because I didn't get involved with the organization, I didn't make connections, and there was no place for me to go. If there was a job advertised in Durham, I didn't know anyone and no one knew me. And I can tell you, as Randy talked about, being involved in an organization like this is great for your career. 2005, I went back to work for local government in the city of Durham. I had been a director before with the city of Roxborough, had been a director in a health center, and I started back as a senior analyst because I was starting over my career in local government. One of the first things I did was I joined the Budget Association. I came to a program committee meeting, and Evans Ballard, in his annoying way, would look at me and say, and I didn't know anyone in the room, didn't you raise your hand, Bertha? Don't you have something to say? I'm like, I've been out of local government for 8 years. I don't know anything about local government. And Randy harassed me until I Evans harassed me until I actually joined the board. And he would always call me and say, you coming to the conference, are you coming to the meeting, or you need to do this. And as I look around this room today, the number of persons who are still involved in this association is amazing. And these are the same people I call on all the time for assistance. When I got on the board, I was a senior analyst, as I mentioned, in 2005. A year later or so, I was promoted to assistant director. And then I was promoted to director. How did I progress so quickly? This association. I came from a city with 5 departments, and I was really the only professional director in the organization. And I went to a city with 26 departments. And my first assignment was the CIP coordinator the city just passed a 2005 bond referendum for $110 million, and you're responsible for setting up all of those projects and figuring out a system for tracking progress on those projects and setting up a website. And oh, and by the way, we're just starting to redo our impact fee ordinance, and we need you to work on that. And I'm like, what's an impact fee? What am I going to do? But the resources in this organization, calling up Larry in Greensboro and calling up Randy and talking to Robin, and all the other folks in this room, and calling, talking to Jack, and I still stay at the Institute of Government. And having those kinds of connections where you can call someone and say, we have this issue. I remember a few years ago, the council asked us to look at a solid waste fee. I didn't know anything about solid waste fees. And so, Robin, where's Robin? I'm emailing Robin. I'm like, Robin, tell me how are you paying for your solid waste, and what's this cost, and do you have a fee? And sometimes I'm sitting in a meeting and we have such a great relationship, I'll text someone or send an email and say, okay, the council members just asked about this and I told them we'll get back. Can you tell me what you're doing in Raleigh? Can you tell me what you're doing in Greensboro? What's going on in Wilmington? And you get that instant feedback. That's how I was able to be successful so quickly, because I had so many resources supporting me. And I tell you, I've gotten so much support from the folks in this organization, from the people at the School of Government. It has been unsurpassed any other field I've ever worked in. And I would say to you all, if this is your first meeting, look around. Look at the budget directors in North Carolina. Look at, for example, Ruffin Hall, the city manager for Raleigh, started out as an analyst in Durham, was very involved in this organization. Michael Bryan in the back, who's just been promoted to the budget director, and I don't know his official title, in Mecklenburg County, has been very involved in this organization. You look at Randy and you look at the other folks who have been successful, Pam, they've all been very involved in this organization. So I'm saying to you, if you really want to really work towards your career and you want to move up in the budget profession, stay involved with this organization. You'll have lots of resources. And I would say as a director, one of the things I do when I come to the conferences, I recruit. Where's Josh? Josh Edwards is our new strategic initiatives manager in the city of Durham. But recruiting and knowing folks, and when you see their resume come through your office, everyone has an MBA now. You know, we know they're technically proficient, right? It's particularly those folks that come from UNC Chapel Hill, right? I didn't get my MBA from UNC Chapel Hill, and that was another reason I needed to network, because there was a group of folks that who really knew each other and talked to each other and had that relationship I didn't have. But I come to the conferences and I recruit, and I look at the talent that is in this organization, because you can be a budget analyst and run a conference. You can be a budget analyst and be the president of this association. Where else can you do that, right? To develop those leadership skills, expose others to your skills, and then when you opportunities and organizations arise, they say, I know Josh. I saw him at the conference. He did a presentation, or he was on the board, or he put together the conference, or I've heard others talk about him. Network and talk to people. So those are opportunities you'll have with this organization, and you really need to take advantage of those, because it will help you so much in your career to have these resources. Work alongside directors, assistant city managers, and others where you might not ever have that opportunity. So I would say take advantage of this. It's a cheap way to develop your leadership skills. Very cheap membership, right? Very inexpensive conferences, and you meet lots of people from across the state and other places. So take advantage of that. That's what I've gotten from this organization, and I am so grateful for it, and I think it has really, really, really made a difference in my career. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your conference.
So we've got 5 minutes. Are there any questions from the floor that you'd like to ask any of the speakers?
Can I make another comment?
Absolutely.
What's this stuff about drink tickets? In the early days, we didn't have any drink tickets.
Raise your hands if you don't drink. How about that?
Okay, so we'll, oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Russell.
As I go to conferences, professional conferences, I run into people who know about this organization, people from other states. Are you aware of other states that have set up similar organizations because they've heard of this organization?
Well, just, I'm not up to date. The last 10 years, shall we say, I'm not sure. But when the organization got going, I think it was, if not unique, unusual among the different states, and perhaps others could comment.
Well, I can say I'm from a South Carolina government, and we have tried to implement something similar in South Carolina, and just the startup is just, we haven't been successful. So my organization always attends you all's budget association. So as an outsider, we appreciate being able to be a non-voting, well, I guess we can actually vote now, a member of the association. So it's incredibly hard to get something like this going. And we're just right across the border and have you guys as a model, and we weren't successful when we tried.
That's actually been a goal of ours, that one of the things that we haven't actually gotten done, but is to get South Carolina more involved, and that way we might have a summer conference in Myrtle Beach. But seriously, yeah.
Well, I was just only going to add, for those in the room, from my understanding, I think what a lot of states do is some of their budget folks get wrapped up into their state finance director, finance officer association. So that's probably typically how it works across the U.S. But yeah, I think it's special having us as a unique group.
I found coming from New York, North Carolina, the connectivity, the listserv, it's just incredible. It's incredible to me. in New York, nobody talked to anybody else. You know, if we were having a problem in Dutchess County, you really didn't reach out to other counties. Sometimes the managers talk to each other, but on the staff level, there is no institute or school of government in New York, so there's none of that professional kind of issue expertise that you can call somebody on. So that's one of the things that really impressed me about North Carolina when I moved here was the network. Any other questions?
Can I just add one other thing? I think it's great you're celebrating your 25th anniversary. There's a young lady sitting over there. Mary, could you please stand up, please? She won't stand up, but Mary and I will be celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary.
I want to ask this distinguished crew about where they see the future of the organization going and where they would like to see the future go.
Thanks, Keith.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think for me, one of the things I'd like to see more of, and I mentioned this to Josh as we looked over the agenda, I think you all did a great job with the conference schedule this year and the sessions. Sessions that are more global in terms of not just really local issues, but current concerns, looking at the future and what's going on in finance and budget across the country. Having more sessions focused more globally, I think, and for some of us, you kind of run out of steam in terms of coming to the conferences and talking about some of the topics that you talk about every day. And so I'd like to see more global topics on the agendas. And hopefully that will help bring in more persons to the conferences who are interested in those topics and pulling together some of those topics. So that is what I'd like to see. And I'd also like to see more mentoring. I mentioned when I talked that, you know, when I went to the first GFOA conference, no one really talked to me. I didn't know anyone coming from a small organization. So I'd like to see more mentoring, such as what I mentioned Evans did with me, calling me and making sure I was coming to the conference and getting me involved. More mentoring, getting folks involved. I see new faces here. Most folks in the room, I know a lot of you, but I see new faces in the room, and I hope you take an opportunity to connect with those persons and talk to them about the conference, and not just today, but keep in touch with them, email them, call them up, ask them to come to the program committee meetings and get involved.
One thing I'd add is, you know, I think starting out in our careers, you know, the analytical skills are extremely important. The interpersonal skills can help get you those second and third jobs. But the role of technology, I know like in our office, I mean, that's a challenging aspect in terms of, you know, just our lives are more dominated by technology. And, you know, a lot of us in our office, you know, we don't feel like we're technologists or, but we're kind of forced to be in that role sometimes just to operate our own function. And so I don't know how that quite evolves over time, but just I think we all know in our lives that technology is more part of how we do our business and in our profession, that's a greater and greater, I think, need and skill set, and maybe an evolution to some degree in what we do.
Okay, so if there aren't any more questions, we'll break for lunch, get some more networking and catching up, and the lunch is downstairs in the